I wasn't able to give my fullest 100% in every single minute of every single lesson because of just general fatigue.
Sometimes I feel as if with teaching it feels almost like you're always doing something wrong, or you're always being told that what you're doing might be wrong. Sometimes when parents want it one way and you're just trying to do your job the other way, you don't just get to kind of close the door and like have a fun discussion with kids.
It's hard being a teacher and having to spend your entire weekend continuing to do your job.
I'm never going to be able to retire.
Several years ago, I think if I had posted this job, I would have gotten probably 20 resumes. I probably had a handful.
The teacher shortage nationwide has caught considerable attention. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, over 600,000 public school teachers left from 2020 to 2022. And according to the National Education Association, over half of current teachers are considering leaving the profession. The teacher exodus has become noticeable even in the country's top school districts. Last year, Fairfax County in Northern Virginia saw 726 teachers leave. The principal reason is pay. Teachers face nearly a 30% pay gap according to the White House, as other professionals outpace teachers, even when adjusted for inflation. Bridget Donahue is a former English teacher who now works as a school-based technology specialist. Elise Emmons is also a former English teacher who now works for a medical nonprofit. Both teachers left mid-year and cited higher pay and opportunities for advancement as reasons for leaving the profession.
I will get a raise, so it's a pretty significant amount compared to what I'm making now. Hoping that with this new position, I'll get some of my personal life back.
You can't mess with people's money. And, in the past however many years, our pay had been frozen. We did finally get our cost of living bump, but it was almost like too little too late.
Alex Abraham, a former student of Miss Emmons, explains his experience with her departure and the transition to a new teacher.
So she left a bunch of resources for us to work on a bunch of stuff for about 3 weeks until we got a new teacher. There were a bunch of assignments that either weren't graded or going to be graded, so I don't know how that's going to go.
Jeffrey Barham, assistant principal at McLean High School, was in charge of finding replacements for both Miss Emmons and Miss Donahue.
Shortage is hurting everyone, especially when it comes to our staffing. There's just not enough qualified candidates. It hurts our kids because they kind of have a little bit of a break in instruction, but we work very hard and as quickly as we can to make sure we get a qualified teacher back in here.
The thing is, teachers aren't doubting their choice to enter the profession. Even among teachers who have left, the motivation to teach remains. Lawrence Lekowitz has been a public school teacher at both middle and high school level for over 20 years. He says connecting with his original inspiration has motivated him to keep teaching.
Usually when you become a teacher, you have one of those teacher moments where you have a mentor and you think, oh, I want to be like them. I really didn't have that when I was growing up, and I've always thought in one way or another that I could do it a different way.
Christopher Dobson is a former physics teacher who has since transitioned to the private sector.
Becoming a teacher was the single best decision that I made for myself personally. I think that I am a happier and more well-adjusted person for having been a teacher.
What drains teachers of their passion is the hours they spend outside of their contract to grade papers, prepare materials, and ensure lesson success.
For an English teacher, the biggest challenge is grading. We grade a lot of essays and a lot of written work, which takes more time and effort. There have just been times where I've been overly stressed.
Countless times that I've stayed up till 3 a.m. to get grades in because there's deadlines. You tell yourself, I'm not bringing my work home, I'm not bringing my laptop home, I'm not bringing my grades home, and then all of a sudden, you do.
Cameron Kenning taught Latin in public schools before switching to private school for a lighter workload.
Would have 5 different classes and they would all be different, as opposed to colleagues who might be only teaching 2 different types of classes. Knowing that the school I might be going to had a much lighter load was probably the biggest draw away from the public schools.
Not only that, some teachers have the additional challenge of putting in hours before they even get to school. With an especially high cost of living in Fairfax County, teachers can commute up to a full hour to school.
I commute from Fredericksburg, Virginia, which, if you know anything about it, it's about 53 miles away. I know this because every day on my Waze it says 53 miles. It takes me about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes to get here. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer.
I could never live in McLean. It's about 25 minutes in the morning, and then it's a little bit longer at night. I'll be working at a medical nonprofit, super close to my house in Old Town Alexandria.
McLean is about 30 minutes from my house, but I'll be working at South Lakes, which is 10 minutes from my house, so distance definitely played a role there as well. I won't have to take the toll road anymore, so I won't be paying to drive to work.
Recently, Legislation such as Senate Bill 656 in Virginia and the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida are restricting teachers further, making it harder to find support in an already rigid system.
You know, given so much more responsibilities to notify parents of different books and the materials and the curriculum rather than just being trusted as a trained, educator.
More and more is being piled on teachers without the necessary compensation. Don't give us jobs that are not within our description.
If you give a good teacher the flexibility to do what they need to do to become good teachers, then that sort of overrides the need to have someone dictate to you how to teach.
In Fairfax County, a new program called Teachers for Tomorrow, led by Mr. Lekowitz, is attempting to mitigate the teacher exodus by preparing students to encounter both the joys and frustrations of teaching.
I wanted to teach it so that I sort of pulled back the curtain a little bit and showed kids not just the great stuff about teaching, but also the stuff that's kind of tedious and the hard work and all of that.
Robert Kingsley is a student of Mr. Lekowitz, taking Teachers for Tomorrow in the hopes of entering the profession, in spite of its difficulties.
I'm not a teacher right now, but from what I've heard and seen, you have to deal with, especially at this school, hundreds of students. Many students need personal accommodations, or, certain students don't learn in certain ways.
Other strategies to support teachers have included increased support from administrators.
We collaborate with them, we give them voice, and we listen to them. And, if we're not doing something right, we want to help them out. We have teacher appreciation weeks. I also run the new teacher cohort here, so we try to do a lot of stuff between instructional strategies, but also like fun things that we can do to get teachers a little group that they can lean on.
One thing is clear: teachers love their students and their jobs.
I've always been blessed with fantastic students, very attentive, very well engaged families.
I have students who are now in their mid-30s. They have kids. I meet them in shopping malls and stuff like that, and it's amazing. I can be anywhere. I told my wife I could be anywhere in the world, and I'll run into a former student.
Teachers are not being paid enough to afford to sustain themselves or retire. The compensation doesn't meet the demand, so rather than drawing teachers into the profession, it's pushing them away.
My decision to leave teaching is exclusively a financial decision. If the cost of living to pay ratio stayed the same, I was literally never going to be able to afford to retire in Fairfax.
Those who make the decisions about what benefits teachers get, those who make the decisions about what teachers have to do on a daily basis are realizing that they have to either make major changes or there's going to be an absolute mass exodus.